Hey everyone, it's been a couple of days since I've done this, so I thought I would drop in and say hey to everyone. And I have a very interesting subject that I have done some pondering on today. And I don't, hey John, Double J is in the house. Thank you for joining me. I heard this live today. Hey, Susanna. Hey. Thank you for joining me. I heard a story today, and I listened to this. Hey, Steve. And in listening to it, I resonated with this so much, because a lot of times we know that we each have our own story. We have our own why we do something. We have something that has caused us to become who we are and what we do. And literally your story can make you have a lot of different actions. Hey Betty! But your story really defines who you are. It defines where you're going. It defines what you're doing at the present time. What do I mean by your story? Okay, it could be what you have gone through, what you have overcome. And usually, and this is the way that I heard this story. This is the way I heard what resonated with me today. And by the way, this comes from Tony Robbins, which if you haven't heard him, look him up on YouTube's, because he is phenomenal on mindset and helping you to develop your mindset. But anyway, Tony Robbins is he's so good about the way he tells things. And he was talking about the fact that when you have your story, if you're watching a movie and the movie has this character in it, and yeah, Tony is amazing. If you're listening or you're watching a movie, you go and you pay for a movie, and you go to the movie theater and you're watching the movie, and the beginning of the movie goes, great character, there is no villain, everything's going great, the guy has plenty of money, his family life is great, everything is working. Okay? You're waiting for the bad thing to happen. The middle of the movie, everything's still great. Character's still great. Nothing bad happens. You're still okay, when's something gonna happen? And the third thing, everything's still going great. Finishes out, the movie's over, you leave, and you're like, everything still went great. That was the most boring movie I've ever watched in my life. Because watching someone overcome something, watching them go through something and overcome something is huge. Watching them conquer something, watching them grow is huge. As humans, we resonate with that. We love that. We love watching someone achieve and overcome something that was greater than they were. So when we watch someone and they tell their story, and when they tell their story and maybe they've had a great life, and rags to riches story, they've never had that. They've always had money. They were born with money. They were born into a wealthy family. They got a great education. And then they dropped off the wagon. It's because they were not hungry. They weren't hungry enough. And what do I mean by they weren't hungry? I mean, they weren't hungry to achieve something greater than what they had. They weren't hungry enough to overcome what had been given to them already. Okay? So you watch these people and they were born with lots of money, and you see them later, and what were they doing? Maybe they were in rehab. They've had a terrible marriage. All these things that have happened to them, and they had it all. And where did they go with it? They didn't go anywhere with it because they weren't hungry. They weren't hungry enough to keep going. They had everything. Their life was great. Their life was perfect. So they weren't hungry. But then you watch somebody who was kicked in the face, who was dogged down, who was abused, who was traumatized, And what happened to them? They overcame. They achieved. They literally rose up from like the ashes. And their story is the one you latch onto and you follow. I'm going to give you a story, and it's going to be a really good story. It's going to be a really profound, mesmerizing story. And I'm sure you guys have heard this story. If you haven't, you need to look up this character when I tell you her name, because like this person is amazing. But okay, here's this young woman. Okay, and she is 13 years old. The man that she was with, and she was with a man at 13, he leaves and leaves her pregnant. So here's this little baby, 13 years old, and she's pregnant and has a child. Hey, Linda! Okay, so this 13-year-old has this baby, goes to the hospital, has this baby. She's depressed, she's overwhelmed, she doesn't know what to do with this baby, so she gives it to her mother. Her mother, who is overwhelmed with her life, has no time to raise this baby. So the baby mostly raises itself. By the time this baby is 13, she is pregnant again. But before she reaches the age of 13, because her grandmother was so overwhelmed with her own life, because she was so busy with her own life, this poor baby has been molested and abused sexually by 3 different people, family and friends. Okay, so here you are thinking, you're watching this person and you're thinking, this person will never go anywhere in life. She's been kicked down. I mean, here she is 13. She's following in her mom's footsteps. She is not going to have a life. This is the end of her story. Okay, so here is this girl. She goes to the hospital and she has this baby. And it's stillborn. It dies in the process of being born. It dies stillborn. Can you imagine what that would do to a grown woman? And here is this baby, and she has a stillborn baby. Now, can you just imagine what that would do to a person? And especially a young girl who is already traumatized and already gone through a horrible life experience. Her mom couldn't even raise her. Okay, so here she is with this story, okay? So listen to what happens to this girl. She loses her mind. Her behavior becomes horrible. She loses her mind, and they decide to institutionalize this poor child. They go to take her to the institution, and the beds are so full that they can only keep her for a few days. This is a fortunate occurrence for this child, because a man comes and gets her, who is a man that she's never met before, but claims to be her father. Now, the person that I am talking about is Oprah Winfrey. When you think about Oprah Winfrey and all that she has done, she is a worldwide influencer. Her story did not make her a prisoner. She wrote her own story. You see, it started out really bad. I mean, from the time she was born, everything was stacked against her. Everything. She wrote her own story. And when you go on to tell of the things, the choices she made, the decisions that she made, that changed her story, that changed her life, and put her where she is today, you find out and you realize that there is a series of things that changed her story. She made a decision that that was not going to be the end of her story. She made a decision, and literally she changed her story because she made that decision and she was going to stick with it. That no matter what adversity got her down, she was going to stick with that story. She was going to rewrite it. She was going to give it a happy ending. Hey, Jackson. Hey, Joyce. I'm glad you all are joining us. Thank you. We're talking about how your story can hold you a prisoner, or it can actually change your life. So if you take your story and you decide to schedule it out and schedule a different story, and what do I mean? Like, you don't, the lack of resources is never the issue, because what it actually is a lack of resourcefulness, because you will see people like her who had no resources, had nothing in life, literally nothing in life, and changed the way that she reacted to everything. She literally chose her story. She chose to rewrite it. You're right. She chose not to be a victim. She chose differently. And then she also, not only did she choose not to be the victim, and she also made a schedule in her mind to change the outcome. So she took the time to educate herself, to get her where she needed to be. She used resourcefulness to get her where she needed to be. She wasn't going to allow the fact that she was poor, or the fact that she had all these odds stacked against her. All of these things stacked against her. She made the choices differently. She made distinct choices and decisions to affect the outcome. And that is what is amazing, because you can take a story where someone was kicked in the face. You can take a story where somebody was down and out, and you can watch them rise, and they can change their entire story. That is the point, is to take what you have and you write the next chapter. You can use your resourcefulness to write the next chapter. And there's no such thing as, I'm too poor, or, whatever your story is, whether you can't find a mate, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is. I know that there are people who say, well, I can't lose weight because I'm big boned, or whatever it is. All of these things are your story, but they can be holding you as a prisoner, because what you do is you change that story. You change the outcome. You have to decide in your head. You have to make a decision, and then you have to use the right decisions to accomplish your goal. You have to use your emotional resources, your emotions. You have to use those to rewrite your story, rewrite your outcome. There's no such thing as you can't. There's only you can, and you will, and you did. And that is the story that's going to help other people. That is a story that's going to help others out of their trauma or trials, or exactly what's happening. That is the story that's going to change other people's lives and give them the courage to rise out of their situation. When I heard that today, when I listened to that, it resonated in such a powerful way with what I was doing. Hey, Shasta. Exactly. You have the power to make the changes. Exactly, Linda. You have the power to make the changes. It isn't just going to be handed to you. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be crazy. And there are days you're going to want to pull your hair out. And there are days when you're going to throw up your hands and be like, why am I doing this? And those are the days you dig in a little deeper, and you're like, this is why. Because I am not making steps backwards. I am not going back to that place. I am moving forward, and I can do it. I love you too, Linda. But that is what I wanted to talk about tonight, because that resonated so deeply with me when I heard her story, and I was like blown away by that child's story, to become who she is today, to become what she is today. And no, obviously she's not perfect, and obviously she still has times when she's down, and obviously, the trauma has been a lot for her to carry, but literally sharing that story has helped her and so many millions of women and men around the world. Aw, thank you, Shasta. This is actually my crazy hair. It rained all day yesterday and all day today. And so I was like, I can't do anything with it. So I just stuck it up in a bun. Yeah. This is the only way we're going to grow. is literally by taking that story and literally growing, is take your story and change the outcome. Literally, you have the power to change your story. You have to make the decisions that are going to propel you forward, that are going to help you in your future. These are not the decisions that you use to allow your, oh, I can't because, this is my story. You cannot allow your story to hold you prisoner. Because if you allow your story to hold you prisoner, it's going to drown you, and it's going to drown everyone else around you. Instead of using your story and your things that you have overcome to help you and to help everyone else around you. That is so powerful, to be able to take your story and not just allow it to help you, but to share that story and to share how to tell it so that you can help others. Because yes, she could have focused on all the horrible things. And she did tell us all the terrible things. I mean, she didn't tell us the day by day, year by year, month by month, all the horrible things. But she gave us enough of her story to realize just how traumatic her story was. I mean, I can't even imagine living through a story like that. And yet she found it. She dug deep. She made the decision. She used her resourcefulness, her emotional resourcefulness, to pull herself out of that situation. That's heavy. That is so deep. That is so deep. And when you use that, when you do that, because you have it in you, you have your emotional resourcefulness. You have the decisions that your gut tells you, this is a good decision, this is a bad decision. So when you listen to your gut and you do those decisions and you use those decisions to pull yourself out, you can do it. I believe in you. I really believe in you. And you can use this story and your story to help others. Use it. Do it. I'm behind you. If you need me, reach out. Hey, Rosario. Good night. Everyone have a nice night.